Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well and your studies are going in full swing. Now in today's video we are going to discuss a very important amendment that has come very recently, just a few weeks back, regarding Ind AS 1. So the word amendment scares us. So are there any other amendments? There are. We will just put a separate video for that, but most of those amendments pertain to disclosure. This is one amendment which is important, which can affect your sums, your questions, your MCQs, and hence we want to be very clear for that right now. Further, second question after amendments is it applicable to me? Now for this I would recommend every student, irrespective of their attempt, whether it is Jan 26, May 26 or even 2027 and 28, to refer this video till the end, because they have given you two different treatments. Applicable in 25-26, that's a different treatment. 26-27 onwards, there's a different treatment. So depending on when your exam is, you need to know what treatment you should follow, because you will hear every amendment hua hai, there is a change. You will not know that for you is that amendment applicable or not. So get complete clarity on what is the treatment for you. Okay, so let us get started. Now what is this topic? This is pertaining to Ind AS 1, and within Ind AS 1 there was a treatment, if you are aware, regarding loans. Now sir, we have done FR, we don't know when. Okay, I'll do a very quick overview of this concept first, and then we will discuss the amendment so that you are on speed. Okay, so first of all, in Ind AS 1, there is a concept of current and non-current. That is, if a liability is expected to be settled within 12 months or operating cycle, as a case may be, it will be shown as current. If it is beyond 12 months, it is going to be non-current. Okay, this is clear. Okay, now let us say an entity were to take a loan. Let's say I'm Reliance, I took a loan which is repayable after 10 years. What should be my classification? Well, it should be non-current because it is repayable beyond 12 months. You are going to repay it after 10 years. So it should be non-current. Perfect. However, what happens is loans sometimes come attached with conditions or covenants, as the case may be. That is, you might be told that at each year your debt to equity ratio, for example, should not exceed 2:1. Okay. But a question would be, what if it exceeds 2:1? Well, if it does, then there is a breach of a material covenant or a material condition. Sir, what if there is a breach? Now the lender can demand immediate repayment. Now usually, if these conditions are met, then if it's a 10-year loan, the lender will demand repayment after 10 years. However, if you breach those conditions, let's say your debt to equity becomes 3:1, you have breached those conditions, in which case the lender gets a right to demand immediate repayment, which means if the lender demands, you as a borrower has to pay, which means the appropriate classification for a loan where there has been a breach of an important condition should be a current liability. Why? Because on the balance sheet date, the lender can demand repayment. If they do, you have to pay, and hence the classification should be a current liability. Okay, so over here, if you remember, we would have probably discussed this. You might have seen this, where there is a loan and there has been a breach of a material condition. Now what happens practically is, when there is a breach, the borrowers run to the lender and they say, oh, please give us one chance, one warning. Sometimes you are driving on road, sometimes someone jumps a signal, they request the traffic police, give us one chance. Sometimes they agree. So similar is the case over here. When you are probably you have breached a condition, you might run to the lender and say that give us one warning, we will never repeat this mistake. The lender might agree, and they may agree to waive the breach. Remember, waiver does not mean the loan is waived. Waiver just means that the lender who was going to demand immediate repayment will not demand immediate repayment. He will continue with the original terms, which means if there is a breach and there is a waiver, that means the loan will continue to be repayable after 10 years only, which means you tell me the loan will be classified as? That's right, non-current liabilities, because there was a breach, but then there was a waiver as well. So over here, low power, no problems. So there was a breach and there was a waiver. Before the balance sheet date, you got a waiver, which means as on the balance sheet date, the loan is still repayable after 10 years. The classification will continue to be non-current liabilities. There is no change. But what if the waiver is obtained in the post-balance sheet period? That is, before the director signed their accounts. Now, here there was a special case, there was a carve out. That is the difference between IFRS and Ind AS, where India may be said that on 31st March, as a matter of fact, there was a breach, but there was no waiver. So the loan is actually repayable on demand, current. But again, see in the post balance sheet period that there was a waiver. then let it be treated as an adjusting event, and hence the liability which on 31st March, which was actually a current liability, you can show this as a non-current liability. This was the original treatment as per Ind AS. We used to allow to show this as a non-current liability because the waiver is obtained in the post-balance sheet period. So as a special case, let us treat it as an adjusting event, and on 31st March, show this as a non-current liability. Now, what was the problem over here? Well, this was not in line with the international treatment. Like IFRS does not follow that. Like IFRS follows accrual and actual accounting, which means, think of it this way, in the post-balance sheet period, it is possible that the loan may actually be repaid, but it is repaid in the post-balance sheet period. Can you show a loan repayment on 31st March? No, on 31st March the loan is existing. Repaid बाद में हुआ तो show a repayment in the next year. In a similar way, waiver is actually obtained in the next year. So as per the strictest accounting principles, we will say that if it is obtained waiver in the next year, we will reclassify in the next year. On 31st March, why do you want to reclassify? Well, in India, we said let us allow reclassification, and for that we drafted a carve out. That is, we drafted a treatment which was different as compared to IFRS, and that is what you would have studied. If the waiver is obtained during the post-balance sheet period, the liability will be shown as non-current liability. Achha, this was what created a bit of confusion and inconsistency with the global standards, and hence in order to align ourselves with the global standards, we said, well, you know what, let us follow the IFRS treatment only, which means if the waiver is obtained after the balance sheet, during the post-balance sheet period, as on balance sheet date there was no waiver, and hence going forward this will now be treated as a current liability. Listen to this again. Going forward, this will be treated as a current liability. That exception कि भाई ठीक है post balance sheet period में हमारे को waiver मिल गया, let us adjust it on the balance sheet, will not apply. Our treatment is now aligned with the IFRS treatment, which means, long story short, if the waiver is obtained at or before the balance sheet date, you can show it as a non-current liability. But if the waiver is obtained after the balance sheet date, whether during the post balance sheet period or after the post balance sheet period, this will be treated as a current liability on 31st March. Later in the next year, you can reclassify. Okay. So, sir, that is it that you have to remember. Well, that is the amendment. However, the amendment over here has been given in a very phase-wise manner. That is, they have said for the financial year 25-26, the old treatment will follow. That is, you can continue to show it as a non-current liability, which means there is no change. But from the year 26-27 onwards, this treatment will apply. Sir, why are we discussing this? Arey, I am a student whose exam is in Jan 26. For me, the relevant financial year is 25-26. My exam is May 26. Still, my relevant financial year is 25-26. My exam is September 26. Still, my financial year relevant would be 25-26 onwards. So, for all of, if you are a student in giving your exam in these years, stick to the treatment that you have studied. You don't need to make any amendment in your shield if you have taken a class from us or from whatever notes of your professor. You don't need to make any change if your exam is over here. But in the interview, etc., you should be aware that aisa chal raha hai kuch cheez. But if your exam is May 27 onwards, it can be May 27, September 27, Jan 28, May 28, whatever. From 26-27 onwards, this amendment becomes applicable, and hence for you, I would request that you can make a change in your shield or your concept book, as the case may be, where you don't need to show this as a non-current liability. In fact, this will now be shown as a current liability only. This is a change that you will do, but it has come multiple times in your main exam. It can come in your MCQ as well. So ensure that you do this. Sir, for January 27, I think Institute will have to clarify, because technically amendments which are 6 months or above are applicable, but usually Institute gives you a clarification. For Jan 27, we'll just notify it in some time, but other than that, I hope this is clear. I will share this small chart with you also on our Telegram channel. The link for this is on the description, and that is it regarding amendment. So if you hear about this, see what is applicable and go ahead. Okay, so that should be it. I'll stay in touch. We'll share more videos. Till then, study well, study hard, and good luck. Take care.